Hello and welcome to episode number 229 of the ETPHD Team Podcast with myself. I'm Bekka. Hi Bekka, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am great, thank you.
Very hot.
Yes, I'm very hot. I'm wet all the time, all of the time. Moist, very moist. Like I don't understand how people in Austin wear normal clothes. I don't I don't get it. There was someone yesterday in a light blue t-shirt and light blue shorts. And at the same time, I just stood up from where the smoothie place that I'd been at, and half of the chair, it was a green chair, and half of it was black, where my butt, I just sweated butt onto the seat. I even took a picture of it because it was really bad. And then I'm like, I know I have to acclimatize a little bit, and these people have obviously lived in it for their entire lives. But also, like, I guess this is why they can't handle when big freeze happens in Austin, because like this is generally what they're used to. It's truly wild. Like I don't feel like I'm ever drinking enough fluids. I think I'm sweating from my shins. My shins. So I don't know how that's possible. But I'm not complaining. I'll absolutely take it. I love it. I'm still like out there like, I can do this. This is fine. My hat on, everything's okay. How are you, Anna?
I am good, thank you. All good. I mean, I was saying just before we jumped on that the heat has finally got to me. I mean, it's not the same heat, but at least you've got aircon and yeah,
Yeah.
not jealous.
But I totally do think that in the UK and Ireland, like we're not built for the heat. So when it does get hot, my house is like that in the UK. It's like just unfathomable, like how hot it is, and it's like it's only 25 degrees. Why am I burning from the inside out? But our houses are just not like
No,
nothing's equipped for that heat.
definitely not. At the moment, I have like, those child protective things on the windows where you can't open them fully. And I can't figure out, obviously, the people who lived here before us had kids, and I can't figure out how to open the windows. So at night, I'm just like, this is torture. I need to add that to my list of things to do. I'm a bit like you, Emilia, going to the Mac
Yeah.
shop.
Why do we put off the tasks that will add the most to our
I
life? We're like, no, need to do my emails right
Yeah.
now. Like, do you or do you need to figure out how to open your windows so that you can breathe properly at night?
I know. Priorities, hey.
I know. There's got to be a reason that we all do stuff like that, like wait until the very last minute. Like I noticed a crack in my window before I left for Austin, and I thought my bedroom window, and I thought, how did that get there? And then I thought, that's fine. And then I flew, and then I've waited a few days, and I'm like, I should probably do something about that crack in my window before like actually my window caves into my bedroom and I'm not there to fix it. So I have of course messaged my legend friend hero John, and he's going to go and sort out.
And save the day again.
Yes,
I'm like on a salary now, no?
he should be on a salary, to be quite honest, just purely for keeping me sane more than anything else. But no, bless him. And okay, let's get cracking on the questions. Becca, do you want to go first?
Sure thing. Okay. Pressures and triggers of being part of a wedding party.
Ooh. I've not been part of a wedding party in a long time.
No, same. I mean, I'm quite pleased about it, to be fair.
Becca, I feel like you're prime candidate to answer this question.
Maybe. I have been part of a wedding party, but it was a couple of years ago now as well. I think first off, like the pressures and triggers. What are the pressures? I'm guessing it's to look picture perfect, whatever that is. So really exploring that, like what is it that you're expecting of yourself, and is it even realistic? Like, are you expecting yourself to be walking around like a picture that you've seen airbrushed on Instagram? Are you setting yourself up for unrealistic standards, and really digging into what are the stories you're telling yourself? Are you telling yourself that you're going to be, I don't know, standing next to someone who's going to make you look a certain way? And maybe do some journaling on that. Like, is that true? Is there evidence for it? Is that even fair to be saying to yourself? There's obviously triggers that are coming to mind because you've mentioned triggers in the question. So is it people talking about wedding talk? Is there lots of diet talk amongst the group at the moment? And maybe it's about putting some boundaries in place there to help with that as you as the wedding lead up happens. And also like maybe a bit of a pre-reflection. What are you looking forward to? What's actually truly important about the day, and what memories do you want to hold on to when it's all finito? So what do you guys think? Anything to add? I can't hear you.
I think this is a funny one because it's often, I don't know what part of a wedding party this person is, but it's often like when I've had this question before, it's bridesmaids often that ask this question. And I find it really interesting because it's like the pressure, like we go to that self objectification and that pressure that we put on ourselves to show up in a certain way, but actually it's someone else's wedding. The day is all about them. Everyone's going to be looking at them and crying at them and admiring their dress. And this might be a bride, by the way, but like if you're not, it's useful to think of like, is this day actually about me? And I don't mean this in a negative way. I mean it in a more of an empowering way of like, what is this day actually about? Is it about the way that you look, or is it about you showing up for your best friend or your sister or whoever it is and creating the most magical day for them? And can you, when you have these thoughts about yourself, replace them with more purpose and more altruistic thoughts of like, how can I make this day even better for that person, and really try and channel that energy, which is totally valid. Like, of course, we all go through phases where we have this increased like awareness of our body, or knowing that we're going to be getting our picture taken and stuff like that. And you obviously, Bekka, made such a good point around like creating memories, and that's what the photos are about, is about creating these memories. But so I think that's one thing. It's not about you, and I mean that in the nicest way, as opposed to like this kind of your feelings are invalid, because they're not invalid, and it's totally valid to feel like this. Mm-hmm. If on the other hand you are the bride, I mean, all of these things still stand true, apart from the fact it's not about you, because of course it is about you. But then think about like, well, what is it about you? It's a day to celebrate love. It's a day to celebrate like this person that you're marrying. They love your soul. They don't like. It's hard if they've put a lot of emphasis on your body throughout your relationship, and then like it's this big day, like you might feel more pressure there. But maybe you could look at like vocalizing some boundaries around that, and maybe not talking necessarily about looks and diets and things like that before a wedding. It's something, this is kind of changing the subject, but it's something that whenever I come to Austin, and I'm in Austin, the people that know me in Austin, obviously they don't know me as well as people in the UK. I don't mean people like on the street, I mean like people that I love, right? I'm not like, everyone on the street's like, oh hey. But they don't necessarily know what I stand for. They've not known me for as long, and they don't know my own history and stuff like that. And I find myself having to vocalize regularly, oh, I don't talk about stuff like that. Or it's really important to me, like I can't hang around with someone, and I have said that, like I can't be around someone that is talking about calories and all of these things. I can physically, I don't want to be. And so like I'm noticing myself having to start vocalizing boundaries again that I haven't had to do in a long time, because I'm so around people all the time that understand the way that I think and the way that I prefer to live. So it's been interesting for me to kind of have to challenge myself with those boundaries again. I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like to set a boundary around food and bodies. And it's interesting, but my point is that if you are part of this wedding party, it doesn't matter if you've been with this person forever or just a year, or they're a new person. Like, your boundaries are still important, and where you put your attention is where like you're going to start having all of your thoughts. And if you keep putting your thoughts and your attention to what you look like, measurements, dieting for a wedding dress, and all these things, then it's going to be harder. So you have to train your mind to start thinking about other things. And weddings are incredible. Like, they're a celebration of love. Like, everyone loves a wedding because it's like just so wholesome and amazing. Like, can you focus on those things?
Yeah. If you are a bride, me and Roz did a whole podcast on like wedding culture and the pressures that come with it and how to manage it. But even I found like I was going trying on dresses, and the dress that I put on was the size and it fit. And even before I went, I said to the dress lady, I was like, if I like lose weight here, if this shrinks, because my boobs tend to shrink. And I kind of went there before I even like acknowledge, do I even want to change my body for that dress? Because it fits me, why would I? It's so ingrained. It's like, even when you're aware, I don't need to change my body or diet to look better, it's like this built-in thing that dieting is what you do when your wedding is coming up. So I'm like, my dress fits me now, so I'm not actively trying to diet, but if I do, la 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 la. And I find that so much around like people coming to my wedding, like friends and family, they're bringing up their diet and like talking about the countdown, and I'm just like, this is mad, isn't it? So I've had to set some boundaries. Looking better doesn't equal dieting, guys. Like that goes for weddings as well.
So interesting. So interesting. And I wonder how many people have dieted for a wedding and then like by the time they've got to their wedding are preoccupied by food, preoccupied by their body, potentially even more preoccupied by their body than they were when they started because they've been dieting and really hyper focused on it. I wonder how many people get to that point and then go on holiday, potentially on a honeymoon afterwards, and then have that food preoccupation, and that impacts their enjoyment of their honeymoon. And again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with dieting for a wedding or a holiday. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But I think sometimes like we over egg it for what like because what we want in pictures, we want to look 5 kilos lighter in a picture, but then the potential that it has to impact your day and your holiday is like, again, not necessarily you can diet in a really healthy way. And like we've got lots of clients who diet in a healthy way. Again, there's nothing wrong with it, but you are right. Like it's interesting that we just go there.
Yeah. And if there is sort of something in you that you want to cling on to, quote unquote, looking better or actively doing something or feel like you're doing something, think about like your skin, your stress levels on the lead up, your sleep. There's so much you can do to look your best other than dieting, you know, and some people might want to diet and that's okay, like you said, Emilia, but it's not a non-negotiable just because you're getting married.
Someone actually commented on my post today. The post I did recently on Instagram, and it said something like, if you're struggling with binge eating and you're in a larger body and you want to be in a smaller body for summer, you still have to work, like a diet's not going to work. You still have to work in a relationship with food first, right? Something like that. And someone commented just there, I actually screenshot it because I was going to talk about it, and said, it was a woman who commented, I think, saying, many women, if not only women, are behind this summer bodies thing. Nothing will change unless women hold each other accountable. But the men will, quote unquote, blame the patriarchy, so we don't have these conversations. That sentence obviously doesn't make sense. But it's so interesting to me. Like what she's saying is women are the problem and it's nothing to do with patriarchy. And it's like, I'm not saying patriarchy are men, but it's like, are you literally saying that diet culture, which is a patriarchal system, has got nothing to do with the fact that we as women feel a pressure and talk about changing our bodies for summer? And it's scary to me because it's like that internalized misogyny is still so rife, of like, we still struggle sometimes to understand or to comprehend or accept that so many of our thoughts have been we've been not brainwashed, but like we've learned these values and behaviors because of things like diet culture, that we like, not only do we not question it, like you were saying, Bekka, in terms of like, just, okay, well, yeah, obviously I'd get a bit smaller for my wedding. Not only don't we question it, but actually in some cases we're like, no, we're the problem. Like we as women, we're so determined for it to be our fault that we're like, yeah, do you know what? Diet culture doesn't actually exist. Like it's our fault. We all want to be smaller and we all want to argue about each other's bodies. Like it's wild. I've wait and see if they reply to me.
It's like this notion that it's self-inflicted and this is a choice that we all just decided this will be really fun. Let's all torture ourselves for years and then realize it's not working.
Yeah, that's how we all want to spend our time. Okay, Anna, go for it.
So it says, eating is great. It's time to log off work for a little bit and have really nice food that tastes amazing. Working is not as much fun. It's so tempting to keep eating for longer just so that I feel I have a justifiable reason to be away from my laptop and all the Teams messages for longer. Any advice on how not to overeat just because it's so much better than working?
It's so common, isn't it? Kind of like procrastinating. I think In my opinion, there's two key things there. One is your work problem, and two is your struggle with productivity and rest. Because why can you not just sit there and not work but not eat? Because you feel like you have to be doing something because you struggle with rest. And that's something we speak about a hell of a lot. And why does productivity? It's probably because you feel like productivity, like you feel guilty for rest because productivity means something to you. And there's lots of stuff to go into in that sense. But then the other thing is with your work, I think just being more intentional. So we're lucky because we love our work, and I'm always really mindful of the fact that like it's different when you love your work. But there's tedious stuff that I do. I don't like doing spreadsheets and I don't know, certain like numbers and stuff. It doesn't that so there are boring parts to our work, but I think it's been really, really intentional with your work. So having strict times where you're doing your work, or you're on your computer, where you're not on your phone, where you're not eating drinks, whatever, like you're very, very intentional. And then when you're done with those, then you're done, and you're not kind of like you're sticking to a time. Like time blocking is so effective. If you work at home, having in your diary on your Google Calendar, like these are the times that I work, these are the times that I have lunch, these are the times that I have an afternoon break, these are the times that I work, these are the times that I go for a walk, or whatever it is. Be really, really intentional with that. So it's almost like you're being accountable to someone. It's to yourself, but maybe you share that calendar with somebody at your work, I don't know. But you're being really, really accountable to that, because you wouldn't be doing that if you had a meeting at 6 p.m. You would be back on at your meeting. So I think that side of things, the organizational side of things, is super important as well.
And I think this client is working towards changing jobs. But I think considering, I mean, she is someone, as you picked up, Emilia, that works exceptionally hard and exceptionally long days. But I think considering, and we've touched on this in terms of rest, but also considering outside of food, what else brings you joy? And can you do more of that in your day to cultivate those feelings?
I bought a paddleboard the other day.
You bought one?
Yeah. I'm so excited. It's not been delivered yet, and I'm not quite sure how to get a paddleboard from my house to the lake where I paddleboard without a car. So not
Please just wander the streets aimlessly with it.
That is the type of thing.
Because I was like, I really want to paddleboard. I was only saying it like yesterday, and my partner was like, "We've a boogie board. We can just use that instead." Like, no, it's not the same. And then ever since I've said it, it keeps coming up on my TikTok, like people falling. They're like wobbling for ages. Like,
Isn't it scary how like TikTok and stuff just picks up literally anything? One of my friends here is doing like a dating app, and like is creating a dating app. So I'm talking a lot about dating stuff, and every advert on my phone at the moment is about dating apps or dating or trying to find the special partner and all this. I'm like, stop, get it away. I don't like it. It's wild how much it picks it up. Yeah, you should get a I'll yeah.
Do you know how to do it? Like, are you able to stand and everything?
Yeah, and in Austin, like it's so cool here. So I went out on Saturday. I just rented one on Saturday and I went out, and everyone does it. So there's like all ages, etc., are out on paddleboards, and like you'll see groups of girls with cool boxes on their paddleboard and with like White Claw and drinks in there, and they're all just sitting on their paddleboard drinking.
That's more my vibe. Just
sat drinking or eating. So I think it's because it's so hot here and there's not a beach or anything. So it's like the lake is the coolest place. I mean, I have to say, beautiful, right? But such an Instagram versus reality moment, because I was lying on my paddleboard and I opened my eyes and then there was a syringe next to me on the wall.
This is the life. You're living the dream.
Yeah, I thought, gosh, this is like water in the city. But other than that, like it's such a vibe. Everyone does it, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to do it. I think it comes with a little backpack.
Cool. I was just imagining myself on my knees, just like wobbling away. But
it's quite easy.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's quite easy. I think.
Great though.
Well, then maybe it's not so easy for you. But in general, as long as it's a flat surface, it's fine. One of my clients used to go out paddleboarding in the morning all the time, and her checking photos would just be like her on the lake paddleboarding. And I was like, oh, just idyllic. So Yeah, I'm going to start doing that. Oh, it's me, isn't it? Great. What a wee treat. Okay, where's my question? This is Ross's question. What would you say is the most, capital letters, beneficial tool for someone who suffers with the binge purge cycle?
I would say most beneficial. So place to start is exploring like the purpose that the binge and purge cycle is serving for you at this time, and trying to meet those needs in other ways, or doing some work around managing or healing from that issue or that challenge that you're facing. But also like the practical things, like making sure you're regularly eating to combat the binge side of things. I think as well with purging, it's often overlooked that the purge isn't just getting, quote unquote, getting rid of the food. It's also like there's a deeper purpose there, and often it's getting rid, or quote unquote, getting rid of something else, or an attempt to get rid of something else. So really often that can be like feelings of unworthiness or shame, or some other negative belief that you have about yourself. So trying to meet those needs in other ways, but also the emotional regulation side. So how can you soothe yourself when you are feeling that distress? So that's not really the most helpful technique, but I'm struggling to find just one to answer that question with. The purpose it's serving, I think, is the most important part, if you're not familiar with that already. Any thoughts, guys?
No, I think you covered it. I think you struggle to say like one thing because there isn't just one thing. Mm-hmm. If I was really, really forced into saying like, okay, like you have to say one thing, honestly, I would probably say it was eating regularly, because although that wouldn't solve the binge purge cycle, sort of cause or like underlying reasoning, it's probably the fundamental thing in sort of stopping the symptoms or like managing the symptoms. And I think sometimes if you struggle to look at start to understand or develop your awareness around those underlying reasons, it can be hard to do that when you are struggling with the symptoms themselves, because they can be so stressful and shame-inducing and distracting and scary. So it's much harder to go down that road of self-awareness. So if I had to pick one, it would be that eating regularly to full satiety, and genuine satiety, not kind of what you think is satisfaction.
It's me, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why so many women have eating problems? It's super sad in our whole generation.
Well, it's all our fault. It's all our fault. That's why.
I mean, where do we even begin? Where like there are so many reasons why we all struggle. And I shared in the coaches group, I found out what an almond mum is. I had no idea. So there we go. But again, it's not just an us problem. We can see that it's like from our parents have struggled, likely their parents have struggled to some degree as well. And I think things are slowly beginning to change. I'm hopeful anyway, because we're all becoming a lot more kind of aware of the damages. And I think for us, it's working through and shouting out a bit louder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's changing too. But then some days you see things and you're just like, okay, it's not. Like, for example, I want to start Pilates, and yeah, I was looking around at different places I could go, and then I saw the host being like, you can shape your thighs, and I've lost this amount of weight doing it, and you can look a certain way by doing this. And I just thought, I couldn't do a class if there was reference continuously made to changing your body while doing it. It just would have defeated the whole purpose of why I was doing it in the first place. So yes, it's changing. Sorry to be negative about it, but it's still very much present, isn't it?
Yeah, that's such a good point, actually. Such a good point. And I would be the same, but I do remember when I used to go to classes like body pump and all those types of classes when I was younger, and it would be weird for them to not say this is burning calories or this is about the way that you shape your body and all these things. It's wild that it still happens, and yet also of course it still happens, right? We live in a really nice echo chamber of like we can challenge these things, but and I agree, like I think it is changing, but there are still definite strands of it. I mean, realistically, it's not just women. I think, as this person obviously will know, like it's men as well. It's all genders. And there are, yes, the rates are higher in women of things like eating disorders and disordered eating. But one of the reasons for that, amongst others, is that men often feel a lot more shame around it, so don't speak about it as often. So it's not just a female problem or women's problem. But realistically, I think it's obviously multifactorial, but I think it's diet culture and the constant bombarding and reminders that women's worth is in their bodies. And then if you add that on top of a lot of conditioning around like how women are supposed to show, or how women and how all genders are supposed to show up. So we're talking specifically about women. So don't be angry. If you're someone that's angry as a woman, then that's very unattractive, and women, I don't get angry. So what do we do instead? We suppress that anger. How do we suppress that anger? Oh, well, let's suppress it with food because that's a really easy option. That's one small example. Women are supposed to be selfless. Okay, so don't express your needs. Okay, so if you're not expressing your needs are not being met. What do we do when our needs are not being met? Oh, we often turn to things like food and exercise to try and cope with that in some way. Okay, fine. And one of the reasons that we keep going to food and exercise is because of diet culture, because of this emphasis on smaller is better, leaner is better, control your food. This is like a really easy way to do it, and let's glorify it and make women seem better than who can control every morsel of food that goes into their body and all these things. So it's like this myriad of stuff. But then on the flip side, men are like, oh, men don't cry, like don't show your emotions. That's really soft. Women don't find that attractive. Okay, well, what do you do with your emotions then? Okay, well, you can eat, and then you can suppress those feelings of sadness, those emotions. And so then it manifests in all genders in all different ways. It's just that I think often with women, there's just that additional diet culture predominantly targets women and pits women against each other. I was doing a talk on body image recently in diet culture, and I was remembering do you remember in X Factor when it was Cheryl Cole and Danny Minogue, and they used to every week have pictures of them on like in the magazines and stuff against each other, like who wore it best, who's the thinnest, like who looks better. And it's like, that is truly wild and amazing that doesn't happen so much anymore. Of course, it doesn't happen as much, but we thought it was normal just to always have these women pitted against each other. I have a guilty pleasure sometimes when I'm like, at the end of the day, I quite like to listen to the Laguna Beach podcast. And it goes through all of the Laguna Beach episodes. And it's like all of these things are fake. It's total trash, right? It's trash. Like most people will listen to it, like this is a complete waste of half an hour of my life. But for me, there's a level of comfort that it brings, especially when I'm traveling and stuff, that I'm just like it's fine, just whilst I'm answering messages or whatever. Anyway, just got that one out of the way. Like even listening to that when they're talking about like Lauren and Kristen and all these, like it's just this narrative all the time of like women against women, and it all just feeds into why we feel like we have to be more, and when we have to be more, we feel insecure in what we are from the get-go. But it's all women's fault. Anna.
So apt in this heat, if you're not experiencing physical hunger, I've had lowered appetite for the last week or two after previously struggling with binge eating. Do you approach meals of just enough food to kind of keep you going, i.e. protein shake, fruit, etc., or would you make yourself meals?
It depends on your goals and what you're doing. So like I'll use myself as an example. Shockingly, I'm not that hungry in 80% humidity and 41 degrees Celsius temperatures. But I am very mindful that I'm walking quite a bit, and I really don't want to lose weight. I don't like the look. I prefer my look on my body when I'm this size. or potentially a bit bigger, and I don't want to risk the detriments of moving a lot and not eating enough energy, because I don't think it makes me feel like I'm doing something to my hormones. Like logistically, right now I wouldn't be, right? But I don't want to put the stress on my body. I don't want the additional stress on my body. So what I do is I make sure that I try and eat every 3 hours. And if any opportunity comes up where I am hungrier, like say I've been on calls all morning and I've been in a cold room, I tend to, like, my appetite's a bit higher. So I'll have like bigger meals in the morning when I feel like I'm quite hungry. And I know it's at the end of the day when I'm exhausted and really hot that I don't want to eat. So I'll front load my calories as much as possible and have high fat foods. So like bagels, but yesterday, oh my God, I had everything bagel with guacamole, like fresh whole foods guacamole with boiled eggs and loads of salt and pico de gallo, like salsa on top. And let me tell you, oh, just I can taste it in my mouth. But things like that, or like I'm adding loads of sunflower seed spread and granola and stuff to my breakfast. Being intentional when you are hungry and having more calorie dense foods at those times is really, really helpful. But it's hard, right? Because if you're on a fat loss journey and your appetite is lower, and again, listen to this with the ears of your own lens and know if I'm talking to you or not. If you're on a fat loss journey and you've got a decent relationship with food and your appetite goes down, there's no reason to force calories in. Make sure you're having enough protein, fruit and vegetables, but be mindful of kind of that revenge hunger of that's only going to last for so long. And if you're on holiday for a week, or you're in Britain and the sun's only going to last for like a week, the chances are you're going to get hungrier again in another week. And it's like, can you manage that potential ramping back up of calories, of hunger? Or are you going to feel like insatiable and then start to overeat? So you really have to look at like, where are you at in your journey and like, what are your goals? Because you might want to take advantage a little bit of the reduction in appetite if you have a good relationship with food, if you have a fat loss goal. Please know, again, who I'm talking to in this situation.
Yeah, I think keeping some structure, even if like appetite has reduced, like even if you're not super hungry, okay, well, could you swap like your usual snack for a smoothie or some juice, so you're still getting something in when you normally would, so that when appetite, like you say, Emilia, when appetite does return, you've not kind of completely lost it and almost struggling to regulate hunger again.
Agree. Oh, it's me now, isn't it? I'm just going to skip this question. Okay. Roz's question, topic for discussion: how to be more patient when I'm feeling so impatient. I want to be much further down the road in terms of progress.
I mean, we all do, right? whether it's doing this sort of work, whether it's, I don't know, any area of life, we're all quite impatient. And I think the work that you will be doing around mindfulness, not just when you're eating, but mindfulness in general, means that you'll be able to kind of appreciate where you're at right now and be present in it. And I think that for me, it has been key in just helping me slow down and go, do you know what? Yeah, there's things that I want to work towards and I might not be where I want to be yet, but I can enjoy the process while I still do all the work.
Yeah. I think as well, reflecting on how far you've come. So even writing down, what can I do now that I couldn't do 6 months ago, say, and just celebrating the win of where you are. And if you're not happy where you are, or you're not fully, satisfied with the progress that you have made, just try to have that acceptance of, this is where I'm at. This is the best I've been doing. And my habits and behaviors are as a result of where I'm at, and they've been the best I could do at that time. So acceptance can be really helpful here. And it's not a race, but also that podcast that I think it was you and Georgia did, Emilia, around the 10 struggles or that people find at the start. So many people I refer that to resonate. So maybe have a listen to that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's something to be said, and I'll come back to this quite a lot, of like wishing your life away. I think it's the difference between earning your first million and winning $1 million in the lottery, I imagine, is pretty big. Like, to think, oh my God, I have worked and earned £1 million versus I just got lucky and earned £1 million. Like, I'm sure it's great. Both are great, I'm sure. But a lot of the joy comes from the effort and the work that you put in, and start rewarding and celebrating yourself for the work that you're putting in, because a lot of people don't do that, and you deserve to feel proud of the fact that you're doing this work. And your entire life is going to be progress. Your entire life is going to be about achieving things and working towards things. That is life. If you have goals and if you have ambition and if you have this desire to progress, if you're always wishing that time away, you're just wishing your entire life away. And then what? Like, this is all like accepting that work and effort and intention, and delayed gratification, they're all part of a wholehearted life. And then if you're, and God forbid, like, your life doesn't last as long as you want it to last, and then you've just wished so much of it away. Like, again, it's such a cliche, but every day is such a gift that you're even here today to do these things. And I know that it can be really hard, and some days are really, really hard, and we all have really, really hard days, whether it's with your relationship with food or whether it's with other things in your life. But they're all part of the human experience, and I think sometimes we all need to get a bit better at accepting. And I say this as the shit has hit the fan for me this week, not me, but in my life this week. And I'm like, don't wish it away to find out certainty in something, because you don't get this day back. It doesn't change anything wishing it away. So you may as well kind of lean into like what it is right now and accept it, because this has been an adult and sometimes it's really hard. Okay, Becca.
Okay, I usually have peanut butter and banana on toast with a bagel before a run in the morning. However, when I have an interval session, I find it sits heavily in my stomach and I start to feel very sick when running at a high intensity. In the name of keeping my glycogen storage topped up, what might be a better option for breakfast? I'm not sure I could stomach a gel so early in the morning, but I think this may be the only way to get some quick carbs in.
What are your thoughts on gels, Emilia? I know you love them.
Don't ever. Gels are disgusting. They taste like semen. Nobody wants them in the mouth. Okay, it's just not. No, I don't think anyone can stomach gels. Well, unless you're an elite runner, in which case, all power to you. But I'd still rather have jelly beans. I think you're probably overestimating a little bit, maybe how many carbohydrate stores or how much carbohydrate you're going to use in a high intensity morning session. Like, for sure it's going to be highly glycolytic and you're going to be using those like carbohydrate stores predominantly. But in terms of, unless you're doing like a long duration, it's not going to be huge. So I would just have maybe some dates or a banana, or like something that is less voluminous but still relatively higher in and predominantly in carbohydrates. Dates are good. Malt loaf is a good one. You don't need to have like this really large meal.
Of course, I was going to say rice cakes as well. Not rice cakes.
You have to eat quite a lot of rice cakes to get enough to get carbohydrate, though, don't you? Are they not quite high volume and low carb? You just love a rice cake, you little weirdo.
I do just love a rice cake, but with jam as well, like, or Biscoff. I mean, win. Absolute win.
I don't know if I've ever had a rice cake with Biscoff.
I mean, I just love them. That's all I can say. So I will quite happily experiment and keep you posted.
I absolutely love rice cakes, banana and almond butter or peanut butter. Just so nice.
But don't you think it's weird? Because when you eat stuff like that, like, you're predominantly just like kind of, it just goes to the top of your mouth, and yet we love it. And do you think it's when you eat a rice cake with peanut butter and banana, does it not just go like
not that I can recall.
peanut butter, yeah. It has that claggy factor.
the claggy factor, correct? Sometimes I quite like claggy. It's because it makes your meal last longer. Because you're like,
But the moistness of the banana then makes it more slippery.
So you've balanced it out, I see. That's where I'm going wrong.
a moist, slippery banana is quite the vibe for me for a Thursday morning. Thanks so much for that.
Has to be the perfect level of ripeness though, or else it could be quite sloggy as well.
Agree. Okay, Anna, go for it.
I've heard the anabolic window reduces as you get older. Should I be conscious of it at age 47? I teach fitness classes 6 days a week, so my main goal is muscle recovery and energy. I eat 4 servings of 20 to 25 grams protein per day.
So it's not that as you get older your anabolic window reduces. It's just that you get some blunting of the anabolic response as you kind of get older. Men, all genders experience this. Perimenopause is kind of a prime time that we start to be more aware of it in women, especially because of changes in reproductive hormones and stuff like that, which can impact muscle recovery, hypertrophy, etc. So it's less about having to have your protein kind of closer to training or being more meticulous with that sort of side. It's more actually about the amount that you're having in a serving and having these servings regularly through the day to maximally stimulate that muscle protein synthesis response and hit what we call like the leucine threshold, which again can be slightly blunted with as we get older. So if I were you, I would probably, in your situation, the only thing I would change if you're resistance training and you're eating protein regularly is increase your serving size to probably more like, it depends on your body size, but I would generally aim for about 30 grams of protein per serving 4 times a day. Potentially even maybe after training, maybe a little bit more, especially if you're doing full body training. If you do full body training, you might require or slightly higher protein intake, maybe up to 40 grams might maximally stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So if you were living in a box with weight training and like everything you needed in this box of, life not impacting you at all, I would say 3 servings of 30 grams a day-ish, plus 1 serving of 40 grams after training. That would be kind of what I would say is optimal. But again, it's only this slight blunting, but I think over time, the recommendations for older adults is going to change. At the moment, it's wild. At the moment, in the UK, we have an RDA of 0.8 grams per kilogram body mass per day. So like, it's really quite a low requirement. Whereas in older adults, I think ideally, in terms of what we know from the research, we should be having like at least double that, even not older adults, but like older adults in general, or as we reach perimenopause and slightly beyond. I say older, like I don't really class that as older anymore, but like I'm talking about in terms of the research, then I would say potentially maybe up to even 2 grams per kilogram body mass. Okay, if chocolate tastes better than salad, then why would I ever eat salad over chocolate?
Because you value your health. I don't know. Maybe you don't, but obviously you're doing this work to look after yourself, and part of that is also being mindful of all the nutrients that your body needs and using for self-compassion in that sense, and knowing you can have chocolate another time.
Yeah. And also I think nutrition is more than taste. It's also for energy, nutrients, well-being, and you'll get what you get from chocolate you won't get from salad, and what you get from salad you won't get from chocolate. So that's why we talk about variety all the time. You have to
I also think, like, again, if you're trying to be compassionate towards yourself, there's the kind of compassion, and there's a fierce compassion, and it's like, okay, well, what's my future self going to thank me for? If you are 25 right now, would your 70-year-old self thank you for eating chocolate every day and only chocolate every day? Or would they thank you for having chocolate after you've had a salad every day? What's going to, like, we don't often think about ourselves, future selves, that far in advance. We think of that person like a stranger, which is why often when we say like, what will my tomorrow self thank me for, it's a lot easier to use that as a guide to navigate your actions. But it's respect for your body. And sometimes it's hard to think about that if you don't respect your body, and if you don't appreciate and love your body, it can be hard to treat your body in the way that you do. And so you might think, well, yeah, but I don't really respect them that much, so why would I do that? But then that's why a lot of the body image work, that's why we never do with our clients relationship with food work without body image work, and body image work without relationship with food work, because they're so intertwined. If you don't respect your body, it'll be very hard to treat her well or them well, and vice versa. Bekka.
Okay. I notice in my journaling lots of feelings of frustration at body image, about feeling like I put loads of work in and get nothing back, and frustration at times around lack of control over work schedules. Is it possible to reframe this or tackle this in a positive way?
I think it's worth like sitting with the frustration and allowing yourself to be frustrated, because it can be both in terms of work and this whole process. So again, it's like what Emilia was saying about anger. It's like, oh, we shouldn't feel this is a bit uncomfortable, and I think, yeah, just give yourself that time to sit with those feelings. And then maybe this is something you do in your journaling, maybe this is something that you talk through with your coach, is that, okay, well, why are these feelings coming up? Am I just kind of getting impatient, kind of similar to the previous question with the process? Or are there things that I could potentially do to support myself a little bit more to help with these feelings of lack of control? And equally looking at your work, and are there things there that you can do? Or is there that level of acceptance that some of these things are going to be outside of your control, and you're going to have to get comfortable being uncomfortable in that sense?
I think look at your expectations. Like, are you getting nothing back, or are you not getting back what you think that you should be getting back? And where has that should come from? Why do you think that you should be further on than you are? Or why do you think that you should see more dramatic changes, or whatever it is? Like, where has that expectation come from? Often when we feel frustration or resentment, it's because we haven't managed our expectations, or we're working off something that is, maybe you have perfectionist tendencies, and so you expect this kind of perfect outcome at this specific time. And is that actually the reality? Probably not in this process. Like, perfection is obviously not something that we strive for anyway, but I think it's so easy, especially in fitness and health, to look at 8-week summer shreds and 12-week transformation programs and all of these things, to think that, okay, well, after this certain amount of time, this is what I can expect to happen. And that doesn't happen. We get frustrated. The problem is not in your progress and the work that you're putting in. The problem is the expectation that you created as a result of all of these things in the first place. So I think that is one thing. And then the other thing is practicing acceptance of, what can you change? Can you change the work that you're putting in? Can you change the habits? I don't know what your situation is. Can you change your boundaries with work? Can you change your own schedules? Okay, well then let's focus on those. And then what can't you change? Because realistically, if you can't change that, you have to, let's say, like when I was lecturing, I'd have to teach on a Friday afternoon. And that was what the dean of the school had, or the timetable people had given me. I couldn't change that. As much as didn't really like teaching on a Friday afternoon, because my brain was dead by that point. Like, what can I do? I can get annoyed at it and frustrated at it and like irritated that I can't control it, and then it makes it worse. Or I can choose to say, okay, well, this is what's available to me, and I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to go for a coffee beforehand and make a nice thing about it, and then like intentionally go into it and show up in a really positive way. Like, that's a choice. So practicing that acceptance of what you can't control, and then thinking about, okay, well, what can I control, and trying to find an opportunity in what you can control, I think can be quite helpful.
Yeah. I wonder as well, is it like misplaced emotion, or are you blaming your body for things that it's not even your body's fault? So like you say, frustrated at your body image. So just make sure that it is actually your body that you're frustrated with, because you've mentioned as well being frustrated at work and not being able to control your schedule. And remember, our bodies can easily get the blame for things. So just be really mindful of what you're actually feeling, and if it is directly related to your body and how it looks.
Love that. I also think, like, and I don't know what you guys think about this, but like sometimes we feel angry, and it's kind of ties into what I was saying at the beginning of angry, frustration, any of these quote unquote unlikable in a woman feelings. And then we like what you were saying there, Anna, like we try and get rid of them because we think that we shouldn't be feeling them. And it's like, sometimes as well, you just go through phases of your life where you're just really pissed off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're pissed off at being an adult. You're pissed off because something's happening in your life that you have no control over, or whatever it is. And like you said, like, it's okay to be like, I'm just really like annoyed, and like find an outlet for that. Find an outlet for your frustration. Go axe throwing, go do something aggressive, go to one of those rooms where you smash stuff up, or go somewhere peaceful and scream, or whatever it is, but find an outlet for it. Maybe it's just in the gym, like, or maybe it's someone that you know you can shout with and they'll accept that, whatever it is. But maybe rather than trying to get rid of it, can like lean into it and just rage it out and accept that happens sometimes, and that's okay. Obviously not to us, because we are peaceful beings and never feel anger or frustration, but in general, everyone else. Anna, last question.
Do you have any recommendations for a good vegan omega-3 and a good folic acid? Is there a big difference other than cost between supermarket versus other brands? And I'm just tying this in. Also, the NHS info says you should start taking folic acid 3 months before getting pregnant if possible. Is there any benefit or disadvantage if you start taking it earlier than that?
Okay, latter part first. There's no evidence to say that it's beneficial. The reason that we say 3 months is because of the life cycle of an egg, basically. So yes, in an ideal world, you want to be taking it 3 months beforehand. I would also say add iodine into that, and the prenatal. Just be mindful of prenatal sometimes containing iodine and folic acid. So you don't want to double dose. Omega-3, I don't know of any solid vegan omega-3 brands. The thing with a vegan omega-3 is that sometimes the bioavailability is lower compared to, say, for example, what I'm looking for, like non-vegan omega-3. So the dose potentially, like the dose might be slightly different in terms of dose required. And I would also be mindful of trying to get it in your diet as well. And obviously, if you're vegan, you don't want to have non-vegan, but look at how vegan are you? And can you just have a fish oil? I'm definitely not saying if you're vegan, you should definitely have a fish oil, right? Or an omega-3. But like, for example, I'm pretty plant-based now. I'm pretty, well, I'm not vegan, but I'm pretty vegetarian. But sometimes I'll have something in it that I'm like, that's probably better for me. So I'll just have that. Like, I make allowances, but that's me. Like, you don't have to do that. There are differences in omega-3 quality. Usually or often the more expensive ones are slightly more bioavailable than the cheaper ones. Do I recommend that? No, because the cost, in my opinion, the cost potentially may outweigh the benefit in an overall healthful diet that contains also omega-3, etc. So, but in terms of other supplements like folic acid, there's not so much variability, and an over-the-counter one is absolutely fine. I would say an over-the-counter one for any supplement generally is fine, to be honest, including omega-3, but are there slight differences in bioavailability? Yes. Does that impact the recommendations I give on a mass level? No. So I'm not sure if that's particularly helpful. There's no specific brand that I recommend, but that, like, I'm just being honest about what I would recommend like to a client. Okay, fabulous questions, everyone. Keep them coming in. Thank you both so much. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.